Some people can hurt you, look you in the eyes, and feel absolutely nothing. No guilt, no hesitation, no second thought. And the unsettling part? You've probably met one of them. Maybe you trusted them. Maybe you loved them. Maybe you're still trying to understand how someone could do what they did and sleep perfectly fine afterward. Because for you, guilt feels automatic. You say something wrong and it stays in your head all day. You hurt someone, even by accident, and your mind replays it over and over. You feel it in your chest, in your stomach, in your thoughts. But not everyone works like that. Some people don't feel guilt the way you do, and it's not always obvious. At first, they seem normal, maybe even kind, maybe even more emotionally controlled than you are. They stay calm when things go wrong. They don't overthink. They don't dwell. They move on quickly, too quickly, and that's where it starts to feel off. Because when something serious happens, something that should trigger at least a moment of reflection, they don't react. Or worse, they justify it. They explain it away like it was nothing, like it had to happen, like you're the one overreacting. And slowly, without realizing it, you start questioning your own reaction instead of theirs. So why does this happen? Why do some people seem completely untouched by guilt, no matter what they do? Some people don't suppress guilt. They never developed it. It starts with how guilt is formed in the first place. Guilt isn't just an emotion, it's a signal. Your brain saying, you crossed a line. That line comes from what you learned early on. What was allowed, what was ignored, what had consequences and what didn't. If that connection is built, you feel it. If it isn't, there's no internal stop, no pause, no friction. Instead, something else takes its place. Outcomes over impact. Getting what they want over how it affects you. And once that pattern is set, it doesn't disappear. It sharpens. Because over time, they get better at something most people don't notice at first. Justifying, quietly, consistently, convincingly. They don't think, I hurt you. They see it as your reaction being the problem. They don't see wrongdoing, just reasons, excuses that feel logical, necessary. And the more this repeats, the less space guilt has to exist, because guilt needs one thing they avoid: responsibility. If nothing is ever truly their fault, there's nothing there to feel. And this is where it starts affecting you, because when you're around someone like this, you feel everything they don't. You carry the weight for both sides. Arguments leave you drained while they're already over it. You replay conversations, they barely remember them. You try to fix things, they don't see anything broken. You explain why you're hurt, and they look at you like it doesn't make sense. And you don't even realize it's not yours. And slowly, you start adjusting yourself to fit their version of reality. You choose your words more carefully. You hesitate before reacting. You start wondering if you're the problem. You start shrinking what hurt you just to keep things stable. Because deep down, you're expecting a reaction that never comes. You're waiting for that moment where they finally feel it, where it hits them, where they say, I'm sorry. And it's real. But it doesn't happen. Not because they're strong, not because they're more logical, because they don't process guilt the way you do. Sometimes they don't process it at all. Here's the darker part. Not everyone who lacks guilt is unaware. Some of them know exactly what they're doing. They read you perfectly. They see the shift in your face, the pause in your voice, the moment you pull back. But instead of guilt, they see leverage, information, something to use. So they adjust. Just enough to keep you there. Just enough to stay in control. They apologize when it benefits them. They show care when it's necessary, but it's measured, not felt. Because for them, the goal isn't connection, it's outcome. And once you start seeing that, everything changes. You begin to notice patterns you ignored before, how their apologies feel empty, how their explanations always shift blame, how every situation somehow turns back on you, how you end up feeling guilty for reacting to something they did. And that's not accidental. Because when someone doesn't feel guilt, the easiest way to stay in control is to make you feel it instead. So you start taking responsibility for things that were never yours. You start apologizing just to restore peace. You start carrying emotional weight that doesn't belong to you. And the more you do that, the less they ever have to face themselves, because you're doing it for them. And the most unsettling part? They might not even see it as manipulation. To them, this is normal. This is how relationships work. This is how they've always operated. No internal conflict, no emotional friction, action, justification, move on. While you stay stuck trying to understand something that, for them, doesn't exist. And that's where the real shift happens. Not when they change, but when you stop expecting them to feel what you feel. Because once you understand that, you stop waiting for guilt to appear in someone who never developed it. You stop explaining your pain to someone who doesn't process it the same way. You stop trying to get closure from someone who doesn't experience responsibility the way you do. And instead, you start paying attention to actions, patterns, consistency, not words, not promises, not moments of temporary understanding. Because someone who doesn't feel guilt can still say all the right things. They can still look convincing. They can still seem sincere. But over time, their behavior always reveals the truth. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. You realize that the confusion you felt was never because it didn't make sense. It's because you were trying to apply your emotional system to someone who doesn't operate on it. And that's what kept you stuck. Not their behavior, but your expectation that they would eventually feel something they never do. So the next time someone hurts you and acts like it meant nothing, don't rush to question yourself. Don't shrink your reaction to make it easier for them. Don't wait for guilt to show up. Look at what's actually there. Because patterns don't lie. Because sometimes the absence of guilt is the most honest thing they show you.